Hi, this is Denise Mathew, and today I'm going to make these leather and pearl earrings. I've seen these kind of earrings around before, and I really like the look of them, and I always wondered how they actually got the leather so that you couldn't see any knots or anything. I don't really like to do a knot on an earring, maybe for a bracelet or something like that. So what I did decide to do is I thought that I would just try to work with a bit of glue, and I found that the glue worked really well, so I used that glue just to glue the leather onto the pearl, and it worked perfectly. Then basically you just add a little spacer bead here and add an ear wire and you're ready to go. So they're very versatile. You can use any color leather you want. You can use any style of pearl, or if you want to use another type of bead, you can do that as well. The only thing you need to keep in mind is that the leather needs to be able to fit through your bead. So you're going to need a big hole in your bead. So just make sure that you check your leather against your pearl or your bead, whatever you're using, and you'll have no problem at all. And also, when you're using your spacer bead, you want to make sure that 2 strands of leather can fit through that spacer bead as well. And so my spacer beads are about 1.5 millimeters for the diameter of the hole. So let's get started. So the first thing you're going to do is, I like to use about 4 inches, but you can use a little bit shorter if you prefer, a 3-inch or something like that. It's really according to how long you want to make your earring. A 10 millimeter pearl here. I've made a bigger hole in it. I've had to use a reamer to make it much larger so that it can accommodate the leather. I'm using a 1 millimeter leather cord, so if you want to use anything bigger than a 1 millimeter, you're going to have to gauge that according to your bead size and so forth. You want to make sure that you cut both exactly the same size, because you really want to make sure your earrings are going to match. Now if you prefer, you could do a pendant with this as well, and then you would just need one. So now that that's done, I have this E6000 glue. So I'm just going to dip the tip of my, get some glue on the end of that leather, and then I'm just going to shove it right in one side. Okay, and you're only going to shove it in about halfway through because you want the other side to go in the other half. Try not to get too much glue on your leather, because it can kind of make the bead gummy. So then just kind of put it in the other side. I've glued the other side, and then just kind of push those in together. So you want to kind of really make sure that they're connecting. You're going to let that dry, and I would let it dry a couple hours. You don't have to let it dry a couple hours, but I like to do it that way, because that way nothing's going to fall apart, the pearl's not going to come out, and everything's going to be just exactly the way you want it to be. So I've already done one ahead of time, and this is all perfectly dry, and so I can tug on it and it's going to stay in place. So the only thing I have to do now is I'm going to add these. These are about 6 millimeters. They're like a little spacer bead. Now you can use a round bead, you can use any kind of spacer bead, but you also again have to keep in mind that the leather has to fit through that hole, so that's something to keep in mind. And this is about a 1.5 millimeter hole on my spacer bead. Now it's not easy just to squish your leather right through these holes. Like it's a little bit difficult. So a trick I like to do is I like to just take a piece of wire, and if this is just a 26 gauge wire, I've doubled it up, and just slide my loop of leather on it like that, and just put those 2 wires right through that hole. And what you're going to do is you're going to be able to pull that leather right through just so easily. So no problem at all. It's much easier to do. And make sure that the spacer bead is in the center, so that there's an equal amount of leather on both sides. And so what you're going to do is, because leather is kind of stiff, you're going to have to work it a little bit and try and make it the way you want it to make it. And the more you wear it, of course, the more it will relax. But then that's basically what you would have. Now if you have a shorter, like say you were using a 3-inch, you're going to have a less of a space between your spacer bead and your loop. Now you can make a bigger loop. You could bring your spacer bead right down like that and have a bigger loop, so it's a different look. I like it with just a little loop on top, but again, it's really up to you what you want to do. And at this point, the only thing you have to do is open up an ear wire, and then just kind of slide it on. And it already is positioned exactly the way you need it to be positioned. And that would be your finished earring. Okay, so this concludes the tutorial. I hope you liked it. If you did, please like, share, subscribe, and comment. We'll see you next time. Thanks for coming. Bye for now.